Alright, for our first Fallout Friday of the new year, we're working on EDE from the New Vegas Companions, or Eddie, depending on how you want to pronounce it. He's a fairly detailed Eyebot, being a prototype of work. So he's got the little sensor dish, various repairs that have been made with old license plates, these CRTs mounted on the top and bottom. So he's going to have a few more details than your standard Eyebot. Now, if my camera will behave. There we go. So, as you can see, we've already started painting by having a base of metallic. So you can either airbrush this on or just rattle can. We want a darker, more bolt gun metal. So that's what we've started with. Also, for flight stand, I use an old GW flight stand for painting. That way, when I do set him up on his actual flight stand, it won't have any paint on it. It'll just be clear plastic. And there's a small amount of silly putty basically holding him on there to make it easier. For his base, it's got a tire and a bit of headlight on it, so a little bit of detail, but pretty easy to paint up. So we're going to start by going ahead and dry brushing a lighter silver just to pick up the highlights and kind of accentuate some of the details on him. A lot of times you may do a wash before going ahead and doing a dry brush. I'm going ahead and starting with it here so that we can see what we're working with a little easier. Okay, so that little bit of detail work, you can see he's already showing off his lines quite nicely. So the next thing I'm going to do is pick out the framework around his grill. And a lot of the shots I've seen, that's kind of done in a more orange or yellow color, not necessarily metallic. But we're going to go ahead and use some game color, so Vallejo brass, just to have a brass plate encompassing the frame there. Alright, so we've got our piece done there. You can see the brass is really bringing that grill into a nice focus there. It gives us a bit of the model to look at. Next up, we're going to go ahead and do the CRT tubes. And what we're going to do with those is go ahead and cover the metal with some Ultramarines blue contrast paint, which will kind of let the metal through a little bit, so it'll give it a little interesting appearance. Alright, with that, that gives us a little color there, and those blues will dry into, you know, almost metallic look with the metal base coat. So next up, we're going to start working on the other little pops of color that we have, which are going to be the plates on either side. So the right hand side is a honor student plate, and the left hand side is the license plate that Eddie gets his name from. So we're going to go ahead and start with the license plate. The background on that is red, so we're going to use our Vallejo Game Color Heavy Red and just pick out the license plate. Alright, so while that dries, we're going to go ahead and do the honor student plate. Unlike the license plate, this doesn't have any raised detail to pick out later. So it's kind of up to us to play with it a bit. So we're going to go ahead and apply just a bit of base first, so that once we get the yellow on there, it stands out. Alright, so we have to wait for that and the red to dry a bit. So while that's going on, we're going to work on a couple other detail points. There's a couple cables on the front underside, so we're just going to pick those out with the light gray, just to have it show off a bit rather than going with color on it. I just want to do the gray because it'll really be stark in contrast. So the other thing we're going to do while it's drying is we're just going to apply our initial colors to the base itself. So we're going to use our Tau Light Ochre as usual for the dirt. We're going to take a darker metal, so we're going to use our gun metal for the light frame, and then we'll use contrast black Templar for the tire. So we're just going to go ahead and knock that all out while waiting for the main model to dry. Okay, so we went ahead and added our base colors. I also threw in some Apothecary white for the headlamps, which picks out the crack in it quite nicely, and a bit of dark gray to go on the rock there. So we're going to be waiting for that to dry, because once it does, we'll be applying our Agrax Earthshade over it to pick up all of those details. For now, we're going to go back to the main model, and we're going to look at working on the license plate some more. So we need to go ahead and pick out those letters and everything. So we're going to use an off-white, because one of the things I don't like painting is a pure white for most things. So I tend to use GW Model Colors Ivory. I find it to be a good off-white. Goes down easier since it's not a pure white. So as we can see here, came out pretty good. We can make out the lettering. That's exactly what we want, because now, as you can see, that really draws the eye right to the model. So now we're going to try and do the same on the opposite side. First, we're going to apply the Iyanden yellow. So this is basically a bumper sticker being used to hold part of him together. So that's why it doesn't have any lettering on it. So while it's drying, we're going to move back to the base and apply our Agrax Earthshade. And working in different sections of the model this way is how you can keep working without having to completely stop and wait for something to dry. Just move on to a different section and then return to that section once you're done. Alright, so the base is looking really good. So we can return back to the honor student piece on EDE, which will be the final part on him. I've gone ahead, the lettering's done in red in the imagery I have, so I'm using my deep red again. And I've also gone ahead and thinned it out this time. Keeping it thick when I'm trying to apply over raised surfaces is good, but if I'm trying to do actual lettering, I tend to thin it down a bit so I can more control how much paint's on the brush. I've also adjusted over to my 000 Artist Opus. I can do all of my painting with my trusty one brush, but for something as tiny as this lettering, I'm going to go ahead and try doing it with the smaller tip. Looking at the honor student decal, it's pretty small, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge. So we're going to have to remember you basically want to cut this in half, because you're going to have honor student, And then we're going to try and go in here and mark these up. I'm also going to take off my glasses so I can focus on it. So hopefully this will go well. So, as we can see, I ran out of room, so now it just says Honor Stud. And you know what? We're going to leave it that way because that's kind of cool. Lettering, tiny lettering like that is extremely difficult. So you don't even actually have to do it if you don't want to. Just put the color on there and be done. Because, let's face it, from the distance that I'm looking at it right now, you can't see any lettering. You can tell there's lettering on there. So I'm going to leave it as is because it does look good. Now, we need to weather him a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and just give him a quick Agrex Earthshade wash. Alright, so we just need to wait for that to dry now, and then we will seal, come back and apply our tufts to the base. The base has a couple very nice open spots, so we'll definitely be applying them there, and we'll be all done. Okay, so we are all set now to apply our tufts. Everything's sealed up nicely. So we're going to go with our Wasteland Scenics Highland tufts again. So since we have two very nice open spots, we're going to use two tufts, and we're going with the bigger ones. So we're just going to put some paint, some glue on here. And then we will take this. Since this is the larger of the two, we're going to put it over here on the larger section. Then take a slightly smaller one, but only slightly. And we will apply it on the other side as well. There we go. So that gives that base a nice full look. So now we're ready to take Eddie off of here. The great thing with Silly Putty is it's really easy to get off of models. So you just take another piece of it and just kind of pop it in and out. Just let it suck up its own. There's a little bit left, but that's fine because it'll help it stabilize on the pole. And then just like that. So we're going to use a little bit of glue to mount the pole to the base, but we're not going to mount it to the model itself. It's much easier to replace if the base has a problem than if the iBot does. So we're going to take a small amount of super glue. And we want to be careful how much we use because we don't want it frosting up. And we're just going to insert that. And then Eddie is ready to go. And there we have it. So, pretty good start to the year. Nice simple model, but with some nice details that really make him stand out. We'll be continuing with the new Vegas companions from the most recent releases for the next few weeks. And then I don't think we have any releases scheduled soon, but we'll be delving into my backlog. I plan to put out a video next week showing my entire collection, so you can just see how massive my backlog actually is. It's quite embarrassing. In addition to that, I'm going to be putting out Fallout 4 videos on Wednesdays showing off Sim Settlement storyline. And next week should hopefully have the return of Terrain Tuesday, where we'll be painting up our 3D printed bus and closing out that project. Also, I plan on alternating on Mondays with a new series, so the week after next we'll hopefully have that, and we'll see how exciting that looks. We got lots of stuff going on for the new year, I'm hoping. But as always, thanks everyone, and I will see you all later.